your final assignment for this course is to write this thing called the past and present essay. And the maybe the temptation with this is to just kind of do free association, right? That we've got here's a medieval case of war, and here's a modern case of war, and this is how they're similar, this is how they're different, right? I want you to be try to be somewhat rigorous in doing this. And so I'm asking you to choose a pretty specific theme, right? So start with either war or pestilence, not both. So if you want to do, whichever one you want to do, right? And then within that, you need to find some aspect of that. Now, in the video lectures, I went over several kind of points of comparison. And so you can look at those and, maybe choose one of those. If you have another issue you're interested in, kind of thinking about in this essay, that's great. If you get stuck and you're not sure what to do, feel free to, if you got ideas about something you'd like to do, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to comment on whether I think that would be a good thing to research. And so once you have chosen a theme to focus on, and again, you're not doing war in its entirety or pestilence in its entirety. There are obviously lots of aspects of war and lots of aspects of pestilence that go into these phenomena, right? So you're choosing something pretty narrow here. Once you do that, then you need to go to the medieval sources that we have read or looked at in class. You can use artwork if you like for this. Feel free. It doesn't have to be a written text. And then do some research into that for, recent events in these things. Now, the reason that I kind of conceived of this essay is we obviously have had in recent years some pretty obvious and important and even kind of society-changing instances of both war and pestilence, right? Particularly pestilence in the case of COVID-19. That one's the obvious one. And I imagine a lot of students, maybe all of you, will choose to do that one, and that's totally fine. That one is relatable. There's tons of evidence out there for that. But there's also some, wars that are recent and ongoing. You've got the war in Ukraine. You have the war in between Israel and Palestine, or maybe more specifically between the Israeli Defense Force and Hamas, mostly in Gaza. And so, you could, if you're interested in these topics, you could look into those, either one or the other, or I suppose you could do both, but I might encourage you just to, there's so much being written about these things that maybe confine your investigation to just one of these, right? These will tend to be rabbit holes of information that you can go down, okay? So do a little research. You should be able to do all the research you need for this online. There are so many news articles, government documents, other sources, even perhaps social media posts, although that's a rabbit hole that I'm not sure you want to go down necessarily, because you need to be rigorous about your research here. And just grabbing some social media posts, randomly would not exactly be rigorous research. But, if you found some compelling things on Twitter, maybe from, some people who are fairly prominent in the society, right? Politicians or celebrities or something like that. That could be a really interesting way to look at this in a kind of comparative perspective. Once you have chosen your aspect and you started to do some research, in the actual writing of the paper, you need to point out both similarities and differences between medieval and modern encounters with your chosen theme, and explain why those similarities and differences are there. What conditions were similar in the Black Death, and COVID-19, for instance, or what phenomena are similar, and why do those similarities exist? Explain that as much as you can. The explaining part is really the key to this. You're not just pointing out like, well, here are some similarities and here are some differences. The rigorous part of this is to explain, and by explain as you should come to understand or be pretty comfortable with at this point in the course. That means you're trying to look at historical context, and use contextual information to explain why people are doing what they're doing, right? In this case, you're applying this not only to the rather distant past, which would be the Middle Ages, but also to the relatively recent things. What, and this, hopefully will be a self-reflective exercise. Like, what is our context, right? Why are we responding the way we are responding to wars and or to pestilence today? And how is this different, and how is this similar to the Middle Ages? And you might find even that, the responses or the phenomena are similar, but they come from different contextual places, that the reasons why the similarities exist are actually different. I don't know. Maybe you'll find something like that and be able to comment on that. This is a tricky assignment because, again, this can become just an exercise in free association. It's like, well, this is kind of like this, right? I don't want you to just point these things out. I want you to be rigorous and try to explain this. This is a fairly short paper, so make sure that it's 4 to 5 double-spaced pages, 1,200 to 1,500 words. This is similar to the other papers you've done in this class. Make sure you're citing your sources. Because this involves research, I would ask you to provide a bibliography or a works cited at the end. This does not count towards your page count, right? So I know students, it's like 4 to 5 pages. Well, they have one sentence onto the 4th page, or they even have less than that, and then they count the works cited as their 4th page or something like that. Like, no, that's not what I'm looking for, okay? I don't think you can do this well in 2 or 3 pages. You need to, spend a little time with this, really dig into your evidence, do close readings of this. I think you could have just 1 or 2 compelling pieces of evidence, but make sure you're discussing them rigorously. Okay. Feel free to reach out to me to talk about this. Use the course logistics discussion board. Use the week 6 discussion board if you want. That's totally fine. Or you can feel free to email me if you want to do that too. Okay, thanks.